Book of Heaven, Volume 31, November 20th, 1932. God placed happiness in his works to render the creature happy. Each act done in the divine will is a work, a step, a love that God gives to the creature. I am always back to the start in going around in the acts of the divine will. And while I seem to have gone around within its works and comprehended all the beauty, the sanctity, the infinite goods that they contain, in going around again, I feel I am illiterate, a little ignorant one, and I see that there's still much left to comprehend and to take and to learn from the works of the Supreme Will. But while my little intelligence remained as though enraptured in looking at the magnificence of its works, my celestial King, Jesus, visiting my poor soul, told me,
"Blessed daughter of mine, all my works contain infinite value and goods. This is why, while it seems to you that you have comprehended everything, as you return again into the midst of our works, you find that very much is left to you to comprehend. And this happens because the infinite cannot be enclosed in the finite. At the most it can be filled, but as for enclosing the whole of the infinite, it will be impossible for it. And since your intelligence is finite, it exhausts before the infinite. It gets filled and seems to have comprehended everything. But it is not true. It is rather that having filled itself, it has no place where to put other divine cognitions. But then, by masticating them and thinking them over, it forms the new little place in its intelligence. And finding itself again in the midst of our works, it finds new things to take and to learn. Here, then, the reason why you always feel illiterate every time you find yourself before the magnificence of our divine works. You must know that both in the works of creation and in those of redemption, we placed in each of them the fullness of happiness, of light, of grace, of goodness, and so forth, of all the divine qualities, and all these prerogatives in act of pouring themselves upon the creature to render her happy. The happiness of our works, like celestial air, carries the fragrance, the divine embalming, to whomever draws near them to comprehend them, and overflowing out of themselves, they communicate the infinite goods that they possess. By means of our works, we placed the creatures under the reign of our happiness, to render them happy, but because they do not draw near in order to comprehend them, they are unhappy and feel the poisonous air of their human will. No one operates with the purpose of becoming unhappy or of being bearer of unhappiness and of not drawing the profit, the good of one's work. Much less so does the Supreme Being who did everything in order to form the staircase of happiness for the creature. Now, our only contentment is to see the creature in the midst of our works, to unify herself with them, enjoy them and comprehend them, and to form for herself the norm of how she must operate in her works. And since our will knows not how to do dissimilar works, it repeats in the creature the facsimile of our works.
After this, I continued to feel all immersed in the divine will, and my always lovable Jesus added,
"My daughter, do not be surprised. Everything is possible in my will. With it, the creature holds everything in her power and can do anything. Even more, she feels its empire over her being, and not one act comes out of her if it is not invested by a divine act, power, and strength. What is human dies in our will, but happy and glorious death, it dies in order to rise again with the life of the acts of a divine power and of a will that is not its own. And the empire she feels over herself is so great that if it were given to her to do other things of her own will, even holy and good, she would never do them. She would content herself with remaining without doing anything even for centuries, rather than doing a single act upon which she does not feel the empire of the operating act of my will. In fact, if the creature comprehends with clarity what even just one act of my will operating in her act means, such that, compared to 1,000 acts of hers without the divine act, these would be almost nothing. You must know that, as the creature enters into our will, our goodness is so great, and we delight so much in keeping her with us that we give her our works, our steps, our love, as much as it is possible for a creature. So each time she doesn't act in the divine will, she acquires now one step of ours, now one work. Now she takes our love, our goodness in her power, and all happy, she says to us, "In your will, I have your love in my power, therefore I can love you very much. My love is not dissimilar to yours, therefore I can love you as much as you love yourselves. I have your works in my power to glorify you, and your steps in mine to tread the same way that you tread in search of all creatures, to lead them all before your adorable majesty. And since our Supreme Being, with its immensity, is present everywhere, and therefore is life of each work and step of each foot, and heartbeat of each heart, having given to her from our own, we feel the creature who lives in our will, walking together with us in the steps of all, in the works of each one, and she loves us in the beating of each heart. And when she sees that the creatures offend us, as our faithful one, she would want to hide us within her littleness, and lay down her life, which is also ours, for our defense. Oh, how not to love this creature? In our will there are unheard of prodigies, and since it is not known, it is no wonder that they do not believe in what I tell you. But you, do not stop, follow its light, and let yourself be its happy prey.
Fiat.